Hello and welcome to the Escape Student Loan Debt Podcast. I hope that you all enjoyed your Thanksgiving holiday and that it wasn't too stressful, that you're easing into the end of the year. If you were with us the past episode, we shared a couple of pieces of information, one of them being that we are right on the cusp of our 100th episode of the Escape Student Loan Debt Podcast. It has been an enjoyable ride, and we would really appreciate if we have benefited you in any way when it comes to your student loan journey, for you to drop us an email or a voice note sharing what we've done to help along the way to hello@brentonsolutions.com. Once again, that's hello@brentonsolutions.com. In addition to just wanting some extra motivation to keep these things going, we do want to find a way to anonymously highlight some of the things that we've been able to do and benefit for our community members. So again, if you can send those voice notes or emails to hello@brentonsolutions.com, we want to celebrate not just what we've done, but hopefully what all of us have done together in getting closer to having your student loans forgiven, reduced, reorganized, or expedited. We also, on that last episode, shared a little bit of a different style of episode. We talked about ways to maximize aid for a child of yours that might be interested in going to college, to make sure that they can avoid the reality that you have when it comes to your student loans. And this week's episode is kind of a continuation of that, different style of episode. I promise you, this has just kind of been a test case that we've been seeing to see if people in the community like just different styles than just me talking about student loans for 20 minutes at a time. We will be doing that before year end, but I thought that you might appreciate, as kind of a part two, having an episode that talks about the potential reality of having a child that you like prepare to go to college, and it may just not be the right fit for them. So we are going to do our second kind of replay from our unrelated New Money, New Problems podcast. If you haven't listened to that podcast, I would encourage you to do so. We'll put the link in the show notes. But this episode is all about some unique stories, specifically from a principal in the Wyoming area who has students who, some of them want to go to college, some of them have outside interests, in talking about how he and his school integrated those different pathways into their curriculum. I think it's a really cool conversation. I hope you enjoy it as well. And we'll be back soon in a couple weeks with more strictly student loan related content. Principal Samuelson, welcome to the New Money, New Problems podcast.
Good to be here. Thank you.
I was very interested in having this conversation with you. We've been talking as a team for a while before we reached out to you about this series that we're doing. And I came across you through the Business Insider articles that you were featured in about some of the unique things that you're doing at your school. So if you could just give like a broad level overview of how you're kind of exposing your students to potential pathways beyond college.
Yeah, so our school, we're in Upton, Wyoming. So we're a school of about 82 kids right now is where our enrollment's sitting. So very, very small rural school, rural community. But we do things a little bit different. We operate from a personalized learning format where our goal is to try to reach every kid like at a personal level, an individual level. We want every student to kind of feel like they have autonomy over their own learning. I think that's kind of the emphasis for us is we want students to become lifelong learners. We want them to actually enjoy learning and consider that to be an important part of their life going forward. So we try to take into account what are their interests. Our teachers do a really good job of trying to factor that in. And I think one of the things that kids are always trying to do is kids are always wondering, like, how is this relevant to me? And so as a teacher, you're constantly trying to show that. And when you start talking about relevance, you're talking about like down the road, the future and things like that. And so I think this conversation eventually, our superintendent at the time, Summer Stevens, brought it forward to our principal at the time, Linda Crawford, and they talked about this idea, well, how do we make this more relevant? How do we do what's right for kids? And they went down the road of personalized learning, where we're going to individualize every kid's curriculum, every kid's pathway based off of what their interests and what their needs are. And since then, it's just evolved into something really, really good. Where we have flexible schedules where we're letting kids kind of operate. Here's what classes I want to take. Here's what I want to do. We work really, really closely with parents as well. And so they get in saying what their kids are going to be doing post-secondary as well, and just what things they're going to experience in high school. And we operate very, very flexibly to try to just give kids opportunities based on what, so whatever it is, what you want, what do you want to do? We will be flexible to try to make that happen for you. And we built our system to try to um, operate that way. So
I love the fact, relevant to this podcast, that it is a small school, because I think it's unlikely to go to a school of 1,000 kids and get them to do like personalized learning, or maybe it's not that impossible. But to me, it's very relevant to like what a parent exposes their child to in their individual household. So as you started implementing that program, you were very careful in the article that I read to say, like, you're not discouraging children from going to college, right? You're trying to say, hey, if there's something else you're interested in, let's talk about it. So as you started implementing that program, how did you start the process of saying, hey, I'm not telling you not to go to college, but what else might you be interested in? How does that start?
I think just like you said, like we don't operate from like a question standpoint of like, do you want to go to college or not? I think a lot of schools have operated. There's a time period where that was like, are you going to college or not? That was the question versus, we always try to ask kids, like, what do you want to do? What do you want? What are your dreams and things like that? And then from there, that guides your pathway. So many of in our demographic here in our community, we have a very, very very, very blue collar community, very rural, heavy mining, heavy agriculture. And so our industries around here don't necessarily require college. And so I think our kids see that, and a lot of their parents maybe didn't go to college, but yet they have good careers, good paying jobs. And so we just want to be mindful of that. But I think the question always comes down to, like, what do you want to do? Like, what are your goals for your life? And then you build out from there what's going to happen. And so, well, college might be the right route for you. Maybe it's just, a lot of times, you just need a 2-year degree or maybe certification. But you start with the question, like, what do you want to do? And then you let that guide from there.
Can you give me an example of how you have integrated, for a child who maybe is interested in a non-traditional path, quote unquote non-traditional? Can you give me an example of like how you've integrated that into their personalized learning plan?
Yeah, so I'll use, there's a student from the article that you're referring to. But yeah, like in that article, like, it's not necessarily, we're not discouraging. Sometimes the headlines say something else or make it seem one way, but no, we just want what's best for kids. There's one kid from that article though that we um, just really did not like school, didn't want to be in school, um, had different dreams, and like, but he had an interest, and the kid loved hunting. Like, we're an outdoorsy community, we're a rural community, and the kid just loved hunting from a young age. And so our school counselor said, well, there are opportunities as outfitters and as guides, and maybe that's something you'd be interested in. And so his junior year, we reached out to an outfitter company, and we asked them, hey, we got a kid here that's interested in learning a little bit about this. Can he go and work with you? Um, and so they let him tag along, and he just spent a couple weeks. We let him leave school, and we told him, as long as you're staying caught up, as long as you're able to work hard and keep on top of things, like, Dad, you can go do this. We'll let you go do this. And so we worked into his schedule to be able to operate that, to go do that. And he spent a couple weeks hunting and taking people out. And he came back with, took a guy out. They got a nice big muley buck, and the guy tipped him, and he's like, I got a couple $100 tip. And for a high school kid, that's really, really cool. But it's just, from that standpoint, as a small school, you know your kids really, really well. And in this kid's situation, like, he just loves outdoors, loves wildlife. So we had one teacher that created a class just for him and another student. These kids, they love wildlife, so she created a wildlife conservation course, and those two kids were in that course. But that's just kind of how we operate as a school. Is we try to figure out, what do you want to do, and then we kind of build our school around that. And so, like, this kid now, he's going to be graduating this year. His outlook on school and on life I feel like, has changed, just because I think he has more direction on what he wants to do. And I think that's just kind of how we operate as schools. We just try to figure out, what do you want to do, and then how can we make that happen for you.
Do you think there are some children in your school, I would imagine that there may be some who get some exposure to a path that does lead to college who still feel more supported in the fact that someone has allowed them to explore those interests. Have you found that?
Oh yeah. And there's students on that end too. We have one kid. Just yesterday we had a Veterans Day program. Our elementary put on a Veterans Day program, and one of our senior girls was leading these kindergartners up onto the stage to do their little presentation or program. And you talk to her because she's interested in being a teacher, which will require college. But we're giving her exposure, and she's going and she's working in these elementary classes, and she's getting to work with little kids and trying to get an idea of like, maybe this is what I want to do. And likewise, we had a student who was interested in me being a teacher. And so we went and talked to him about it. We talked about school. He went and visited school. And as he started going a little bit deeper, he started learning like, you know what? I don't know if this is going to pay enough for me. And he since has kind of changed course. So there's value on that end too. Our goal is if we can expose kids to things early enough, they can start making choices for themselves. And instead of like going to college for a year or two and figuring out this isn't what I want to do, or I don't know where to go from here. That's what we want to avoid. We don't want kids to leave and in their first year or two start floundering and drowning and go like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? We want kids to leave here and feel comfortable with like, here's my next route. Like and be competent enough and skilled enough to be able to be successful with whatever that is, whether it be college or not. So I think there's value in that, whether kids going to college or not. We just try to expose them to the careers and things that they're interested in, and then let them kind of choose for themselves.
You've been able to do this for a while now, and you've gotten, I'm sure, for an educator, even when you have your own children, the people who are, in your care become like your children, I'm sure, at least, some of them. So,
Yeah.
so my question is this, in seeing how these children have progressed and combining that with like our current educational system, the rising cost of college, seeing some who college is perfect for them, seeing some who it's not the right fit for, has it changed your perception at all for how you might, trend your own children in one way or the direction?
I mean, I think as a teacher and as an educator, you see that our world's changing. It's wild. I told our students this. Like I grew up as an age where cell phones were just kind of coming into being. I remember life without cell phones. Where a lot of our kids now, they've had smartphones, not just cell phones, but they have smartphones in their hands since they were in elementary school. And so the world's really changing. And I think as an educator now with my own children someday, we do talk to them about like, what do you want to do after high school? Or what do you want to do someday? I got one kid that he says he wants to go to Alaska. My little girl says she wants to be a doctor. My boy wants to be a football player. And so, so we have those conversations. And me and my wife, we're not tied to necessarily, you got to go to college. We did, but we also know there's lots of careers out there. There's lots of things out there that you can be very successful and they'll make you feel fulfilled, be good paying. And our goal is just to find what's going to be beneficial for our kids. What do they want to do? And then help them be successful and navigate that road and that pathway the right way. And so, yeah, I think it has a little bit. And we don't necessarily believe that college is the end all be all for our own kids. We think that probably they will go that route, but we're not. We don't have to.
If you have a parent who's listening to this and they're trying to implement these things in their own home, right? I want to open up my child's eyes, or I just want to honor the interest that they say, that they would like to learn more about. How would you recommend in the home starting to say, hey, let's show them some opportunity. Let's investigate this a little further?
I think first and foremost, as parents, we need to value learning. And I think that's where we want to try to get our students to and our own kids to. Like, you want your kids to value learning, because that's more important than any degree or diploma or anything like that. Because you got kids, you can graduate with a diploma and a degree um, and not value learning. I've also seen people that are extremely competent, never got a college degree, um, but yet because they just love to learn. And so I think that as a parent is focusing on that first, is trying to instill those values and those skills in your kids, value learning, and try to help your kids become adaptable. Because as our world changes, like that's going to be the biggest skill I think kids are going to need to have is the ability to be self-sufficient, be able to pivot with this new AI coming around. Like there are going to be careers that are going to go away, and there are going to be careers that are going to be open. And so you want to be as a individual in the market, you want to be marketable enough that you can do lots of different things, and I can learn on my own. And so I think as a parent, that should be the real big push. And then asking your kid, like, what are your dreams? What do you want to do? You know, are you excited to be you excited to be a parent or a husband or a wife or a mom or a dad? And then what careers would allow you to do that or be successful in that? What things do you like? Because you want to have a job you like as well. And so stuff like that, I think is kind of where as I think we want to push with our kids. If we can instill the value of being a lifelong learner, that I love to learn and I can learn on my own, then I can do a lot of different things.
Wise words. Well, I appreciate you being willing to share your insights. I appreciate you for what you've built, and thank you for being a guest on the New Money, New Problems podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
From Escape Student Loan Debt, this was the Escape Student Loan Debt podcast, a show for established professionals whose student loan payments or loan balances are impacting their marriage, their business, their credit, or their dream of achieving homeownership.